Hi, my name is Stefania Florentino, and my topic proposal is going to be the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on sedentary behavior and physical activity in cardiovascular patients. So to begin, I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID-19. This pandemic began in December of 2019 in China, and it quickly migrated to the rest of the world. Preemptive behaviors were put into place, such as stay-at-home orders to stop the spread of the virus. Things began to shut down, especially gyms and other places where you could be physically active. And although most people stayed at home, those that were in the at-risk population were even more likely to stay at home and not go out to grocery stores or really anywhere, in particular cardiovascular disease patients, because again, they did not want to risk contracting the virus. The lockdown, while completely necessary, may have come with some life disruptions such as decreased physical activity and increased sedentary behaviors. So for this study, I wanted to look at cardiovascular disease patients in particular, because cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death in the world, which means quite a few people have it. Between 2015 and 2018, 126.9 million American adults had some sort of cardiovascular disease. Another reason why I chose this population was because we don't know how COVID-19 affects certain populations yet. We're still doing research on all of that, and so not much research has been done on that population. There was a study done in Brazil on sedentary behaviors and physical activity. The study was done on 39,693 adult participants, and they saw a 266% increase in TV viewing during the pandemic, meaning that their sedentary behaviors increased. Another study that saw similar findings was done on 1,844 participants, and 72.3% reported an increase in watching television as well. Lastly, another study, this one's a little more geared towards what I am proposing. This study was done specifically on cardiovascular disease patients, and this study was done on 1,565 participants. 42% of the cardiovascular disease patients had decreased physical activity. 45% reduced their exercise time, and 62% increased their sedentary behavior time during the COVID-19 lockdown. Now, with all of this research in mind, I hypothesize that the COVID-19 lockdown caused cardiovascular disease patients to decrease physical activity and increase sedentary behavior, which caused negative changes in their health, specifically their blood pressure, cholesterol levels, body mass index. So for this study, there will be 1,000 participants randomly selected from Northern Virginia hospitals and rehabilitation centers. These centers and hospitals will include Inova Fairfax Hospital, Prince William Hospital, Loudoun Hospital Center, Inova Loudoun Hospital Rehabilitation Center, Virginia Heart in Reston, and Central Heart and Vascular Center. These patients should have been diagnosed with cardiovascular disease or eligible for cardiac rehab prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the cardiovascular diseases, just to name a few, are hypertension, coronary heart disease, cerebrovascular disease, heart failure, and congenital heart disease. These participants must also be NOVA residents, and are between the ages of 45 and 80. Reason being for that age range is DINGRA stated that older age increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. So this will be a cross-sectional design study because we will be looking at data from one group at one specific point of time. So this will be, we will be looking at this group during the COVID-19 pandemic. The data will be collected twice, once at the beginning of the study, which will be asking about their pre-COVID life and their behaviors, and then once again 2 weeks after, asking about their lockdown life and behaviors. So for this, for the measurements and data collection of this study, there will be 2 questionnaires sent out, plus 2 extra questions that will be asked. Again, these questionnaires will be answered twice, and same thing with the 2 extra questions. So the first survey will be the SBQ, which stands for Sedentary Behavior Questionnaire. This questionnaire is going to ask about 9 sedentary behaviors and how long per day that they think they did each behavior. So for instance, say they did 2 hours a day pre-COVID of watching television. So they would, on a weekday, on like a random Wednesday or something, then they would write 2 hours in that weekday slot. Then, so they have certain options for answers. There's 15 minutes or less, there's 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and then 6 or more hours. And then for the second survey, it is the SQUASH survey, which stands for Short Questionnaire to Assess Health Enhancing Physical Activity. So this questionnaire is going to be asking questions regarding their physical activity. So how many days per week they did that activity, how long they did it for, and then the effort that was done during that activity. So for example, say they went biking 2 days out of the week for 45 minutes each day. So they would write 2 days, 45 minutes, and then say they did a moderate pace both times, then they would just circle moderate. And then lastly, there will be 2 extra questions. So the first question is going to ask about their 3 health factors, So it'll ask about their blood pressure, their body mass index, and their cholesterol levels. The participants will input the numbers, the data for each health factor. And then the second question is going to ask about the participants' COVID-19 lockdown adherence. This question is going to be on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being no adherence to the lockdown, and then 10 being complete adherence to the lockdown. For the analysis, the variables of this experiment are sedentary behavior, physical activity, blood pressure, cholesterol level, and body mass index. I will be looking at the mean and the standard deviation for each variable, as they will provide the best estimates for the average cardiovascular disease patient's experience in the COVID-19 lockdown. As for the inferential statistics, I will be using a multivariate regression analysis. There will be 3 separate analyses for each of the measures of health. So one for body mass index, one for blood pressure, and another one for the cholesterol level. So in conclusion, to recap everything, this study is going to be looking at how sedentary behavior and physical activity affected was affected during the COVID-19 lockdown and how that affected the blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and BMIs of cardiovascular disease patients. This is an important topic because not much research has been conducted on this specific population. And again, everything with COVID-19 is still fairly new. So looking more into that and seeing how it will affect us in the future is important to see how we can um, learn how to fix anything or prevent anything from happening. So thank you so much for listening.